everyone, and welcome back to the series of exploring the Enchanted Forest. My name is Sandi, and this is episode 10 in this series. So if you are stumbling on upon this video as the first one, I encourage you to go back and start the series from the beginning. I've got the playlist linked down below for you, just for convenience. So it's been a little while again since the last episode was filmed. I've been super ill, had about 3 colds back to back, and my voice is still not quite 100%, so we'll see how this goes. I might have to split it up and film one section now and one section later, but that's behind the scenes stuff that you don't really need to know anyway. I think we should just jump straight into it. So today we are going to be going through the 9s and the 10s, and therefore concluding the minor arcana before we start on the court cards. So here we go. 9s. Although the 10s are technically the final cards in the minor arcana, the 9s are really where things wrap up. The 9s are the culminating cards for each suit. The most empowered, the most desirous, the most fearful, the most contented. The 9 of Spells says, "My magic can't be defeated." The 9 of Visions says, "My wish will come true." The 9 of Challenges says, "There are terrors everywhere." And the 9 of Boons says, "I have everything I need." So, starting out here we have the 9 of Spells. We'll have a little closer look. Oh, that ring light always gets in my way. How about now? Alright, so we've got the 9 of Spells here, and that is the same card as the 9 of Wands. And we can definitely immediately see the difference between these two cards. So we've got here in the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith card, we've got a wary looking man standing on guard in front of these 8 wands, and the ninth one he's holding in his hands kind of like a weapon, and he looks worse for wear, very suspicious about everything, and yeah, kind of on guard is what I would say. And contrastly, we see here a woman, an elder, like slightly older woman, I would say, casting a ring of power here. I feel like casting a spell, maybe of protection, maybe she's just harnessing some kind of power. But she looks very powerful, and in the darkness here between the trees, we see the eyes of some kind of predators. So let's read the 9 of Spells. Witches have no fear of the nighttime forest. That doesn't mean there is nothing fearful there. Wild beasts and creatures, both earthly and unearthly, roam the woods at night. Nevertheless, this witch has come to her sacred spot to perform a spell at the dark of the moon. Shining eyes and vague shapes move in the shadows. Maybe they are harmless, maybe not. They could even be other witches intent on menacing her. It wouldn't be the first time. She draws a protective circle of light around herself, which keeps any dangers at bay. Within this warding circle, she can summon all her powers to take command of the situation. This card signifies that you have everything you need to accomplish your intention. You have the skills, the experience, the maturity, and most important of all, the will to make it happen. No one can stand in the way of your success now. Mark out your territory. It is time to bring forth your full potential of power. Meaning at a glance, mastery of inner gifts, mature power, defense against the dark. A closer look, the witch doesn't need a wand or any other tool to cast a circle. Her magic is within her. Okay, so let's straight away jump into the little guidebook here that I am using from this tarot deck here, Tarot of A.E. Waite, and this little guidebook here is written by Rachel Pollock. And in case you are new to this series and jumping in the middle here, this Forest of Enchantment deck is by Linnea Weatherstone and with the art of Mirella Allwood, and the guidebook is written by Linnea Weatherstone. Sorry, side info there. So, Nine of Wands. The Wands suit carries a tension between group activity and individual action. Here we see someone who battles life's problems all alone, able to stand his ground no matter what. And yet he pays a price. He grips his stick tightly, either for support or as a weapon to ward off any new attacks. We might imagine him as the survivalist from Seven, a few years later when his battles have taken a toll. His right shoulder hunches up in tension while his arm blocks his chest. The bandage around his head suggests a psychic wound. He looks over his shoulder at what? Do the other ones represent enemies or threats? Or has he fought so long that he now searches for enemies only he can see? Another more positive reading would notice the gap in the row of wands, as if the one he holds comes from there and suggests the nine symbolizes his resources. The divinatory meanings, strength, heroic action, an emotional or physical price someone might pay for a long struggle. Right, so we've got fairly different approaches here between these two cards, and one would be able to tell just looking at the artwork, really. They both seem to be pointing at, being standing up for yourself, and there's two singular characters in these cards, and they both seem to be like drawing on some kind of inner power, but that's kind of where the comparisons end, except for maybe that they are both under attack, or that there are dangers lurking. But this one seems to be talking more about, there seems to be a lot more different ways of interpreting this one, if you go off according to the guidebook and then from the card as well. Like, what is he looking at? Is he looking suspiciously around him? Is he, are these friends or enemies? Are they his resources? Is he still fighting? Is this a psychic wound or is it a physical wound? Like, there's many different ways of reading this, I would say. This one seems very straightforward. It's inner power, mastery of your gifts, matureness, and defending yourself against dark powers, etc. And for some reason, the description in this card made me think a little bit about the magician as well. Kind of like, especially the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith magician, where you have all of your tools to your disposal. Where was it I read that? Yeah. Well, anyway, it's kind of like using the power you have within yourself, and mastering them. Also, mastering of inner gifts. I feel like mastery of anything is usually in the Rider-Waite-Smith tradition, as I've understood it, a lot, you know, accompanied by the Eight of Pentacles. So yeah, lots of different things to think about here, and very different approaches to this card between these two. Let's move along to the Nine of Revisions, which is the Nine of Cups. So here again, super different in depictions here. We've got, in the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith card, we've got 9 cups on a table with this chuffed looking man sitting there all, you know, happy in front of his cups. Then in the 9 of Visions, we've got what looks to be the edge of a well and a wishing, like a coin being tossed into the well to make a wish. Or at least that's how I interpret this image. Let's see what Linnea says. In an overgrown glade lie the ruins of a stone cottage, abandoned who knows how long ago. 100 years, 500 perhaps. No one has come here in all that time to disturb its peace. The ruins shelter an ancient well, furred with moss and ringed with fringed gentians. I don't know how to pronounce that word there. Gentians. Gentians? I don't know. Sorry. You can smell the fresh water below, fed from a spring afar, older than the well. Take a coin from your pocket and clasp it to your heart with a fervent wish. Wait for the water to become still. See if you can spot the well keeper in its depths. When you are ready, when you believe, make your wish. This is the wishing card, and it signifies that your wish will come true. As is often the case with Forest Enchantment, there's a catch. The wish must be true. You must want it, visualize it, and believe it is yours. Frivolous wishes can bring undesired results, and half-hearted wishes are ignored by the magic well. Take your time and decide what you want. Don't waste your wish. Meaning at a glance. Circumstances aligned in your favor, faith in a positive outcome, wish fulfillment, good fortune. A closer look. There's another way to make a wish here. Can you see it? Oh yeah. There's dandelion seed puff ball thing here. That's nice. I love these little touches in this deck. Alright, jumping straight in. I don't know how long my voice will hold. We've got the 9 of Cups. Coming after the quest of the 8, the 9 and the 10 show alternate results, each one successful in its own way. The 10 will give us a family, symbol of communal happiness, while the 9 presents a single figure, a plump man, seemingly smug and self-satisfied. A fortune-telling tradition refers to the 9 as the wish card. If it appears in your reading, fate will grant your wish. But what if your wish is just to own the most cups? We see them all lined up on a table, no gaps as in the 8. There is nothing much else in the picture, just a curtain to hide whatever may lie under the table. The position of his arms looks relaxed, until we notice how his elbows stick out. Try it and you might find it stiff and defensive. The 9s, the last single-digit number, all show someone alone, the limits of individual action. Only in the pentacles do we find an image of fulfillment. Divinatory meanings: a wish granted, self-satisfaction, and smugness. Okay, so definitely both of them allude to wishes or wish granting, or at least the guidebook refers to wishes in the Rider-Waite-Smith cards. So we both have talk of wish fulfillment, whereas this card here with the man seemed to also take on a darker side, with lots of questions like what's under the table, like what has it taken, what has this man done, and what has he sacrificed in order to get these cups? Are there, you know, skeletons in the closet, or in this case under the table, so to speak? And then also we have this stiff posture with the crossed arms in front of him, kind of like the body language here is something you could definitely play with in a reading as well. And then we've got the smugness and this fact that he's a singular, like a single plump man sitting here in front of all of these cups. So it gives you a lot to go on once you've read the little writings in the guidebook here. Whereas here we've got mostly the well and the coin being tossed in, just signifying the will of somebody, the will of yourself, the wish being you know, made in this moment, and the power that might lie behind making wishes and such. And here we then have the little, you know, the symbolism of that, where maybe you are being favored at the moment, fortunate, having positive outcomes in life. And you could definitely see that in this card as well. You've gained your wishes, your table is full, you have reached some kind of fulfillment. So in that case they differ as well. Like in this case, the wish has already been granted, it's already happened, that you're sitting there and you're fulfilled and everything's honky-dory. Whereas in this case it's like the moment of wishing, the moment where you are making your wish and like vocalizing it, I suppose. All right, so let's move on. And here we have the 9 of Challenges, or the 9 of Swords. And immediately we can definitely see they've got kind of the same feeling, as in somebody is scared of some imagined foe or fear. We've got this dark image here with the little boy hiding in the tree roots. We've got some kind of you know, tree entity in the corner there. A spider down there on the log, and some bats flying around the moon. And in the Rider-Waite-Smith card here, we have somebody who seems to have awoken from a nightmare of sorts and are hiding their face, maybe crying, sitting up in their bed. So, 9 of challenges. Lost in the woods, a boy tucks himself as tightly as he can among some tree roots and prays he will be safe until morning. Everything he sees and hears is terrifying to him. He can't discern between what is a real threat, and what is merely unfamiliar. The shining eyes, the creeping feet, the tiny cries. Oh, he should not have come to the woods at night. There is nothing to be done now but wait for daylight. The hours until then crawl by as he trembles helplessly in his inadequate refuge. This card isn't really about danger, it's about fear. It's about the middle of the night terrors when you are helpless to do anything but worry. At such vulnerable times, your fears can start to multiply faster than you can swat them away. The scariest thing in the night forest is the inability to move safely, not knowing what is nearby. You may be feeling fearful because you are unprepared and ill-equipped to handle your challenges. Face reality during the day so you don't need to flee from it at night. Meaning at a glance, fear, nightmare, helplessness, the dark night of the soul. A closer look, there are 9 fears shown in the cards. Bats, shining eyes, a looming tree, being, a spooky moth, glistening ink cap mushrooms, which are poisonous, woody nightshade, very poisonous, a goblin, a devil's coach horse beetle, and an alarmingly large spider. There is also a mouse, squeaky but harmless. Alright, so I just saw the goblin there, and the mouse there, and the beetle. The goblin over there. You see him? Alright. Oh god, my voice. Sorry. So, 9 of swords. See the card here. Throughout this suit, we have seen people blindfolded, huddled, looking backwards, turning away. As the suit develops the theme of how hard it can be to accept the death of the old world. Here we see another such figure, a woman who sits up in bed and covers her face with her hands. On the surface, it seems as strong a denial as the two, and yet there is something going on here, a prelude to acceptance. For after all, she has awoken. The coma of the 4 is over, one of only 2 cards in the deck with a black background. The other is the devil. The 8 embodies the famous dark night of the soul, when we awaken to a terrible truth. Behind her, the swords form a painful ladder of truth. The comforter on the bed indeed gives images of consolation, red roses for passion, alternate with the signs of the zodiac, as if the universe would protect her as she climbs out of despair. Oh wow, that's beautifully written. Divinatory meanings, painful truth, sadness, the need to face something. So we have pretty similar interpretations here, definitely. We have the 2 mentions of the dark night of the soul. We have fearfulness about dangers lurking, but the main and biggest difference here, I feel, is this one feels more like imagined fears taking root and playing, you know, a game in your head, like kind of hoodwinking you into thinking you're in danger when you're not. Or maybe facing your fears at a more optimal time, like in the daytime. Whereas this card here is talking about uncomfortable truths coming to light and realizations of uncomfortable things, and the very vivid explanation of the ladder, painful ladder of truth, and the comfort that you will need as you are climbing out of this despair is it's quite poignant and very interesting indeed. Speaks to a lot more than just imagined fears or nightmares. It speaks to meeting, like facing head on the difficulties in life you have to face, and realizing perhaps a mistake that you've made, or facing a truth about yourself that you can't contend with, you know. So definitely very different ways of reading these two cards. I feel like this one is definitely more fairy tale like, which is understandable. I mean, it's a fairy forest deck. This one just seems more mature in the way it's being read, and a bit more darker in my opinion, whereas this one feels more hopeful. All right, moving on. All right, 9 of Boons. So that's 9 of Pentacles in the Rider-Waite-Smith. And in this lovely picture here, we see, I don't know if it's a dwarf or a brownie or some kind of creature here, maybe just a woman, I don't know, in her little hovel with her funny little moth-looking creature there. It's a gorgeous picture. I really love it. And comparing it to the 9 of Pentacles, we see obvious similarities here. We see some kind of a lady with a flying creature on their hand, and surrounded by things. So, but I mean, the 9 of Pentacles here we see surrounded by grapes, and pentacles obviously like coins, so riches. But here in the Forest of Enchantment we see a besom or a broom, and we see an acorn there, a snail, and some stacked stones, and a bowl of grapes. So let's read. 9 of Boons. Tiny things live in the forest. Be careful where you step, and look sideways for glimpses of movement. You might spy something like this charming little nook inside a tree stump, where a brownie has made her home. Brownies are sociable as a rule, but this tiny lady finds her happiness in living alone. While town brownies are known for making themselves useful in human homes in exchange for offerings of milk and porridge, this brownie prefers to tend her own house and preserve her independence. So she moved to the forest away from gossip and curiosity and unwanted suitors. Here she can have everything just so, with no interference. Her companion is a hummingbird hawk moth with whom she shares a love of periwinkles and sweet berries. This card is about home as sanctuary, the place where you gather your strength. Some of your most contented moments are when you are alone in your own nest. There are sacrifices in choosing to be solitary, and loneliness can be the price paid for freedom. It takes a strong character to find a healthy balance between solitude and society. Meaning at a glance, independence, happiness in solitude, domestic prosperity, taking care of yourself. A closer look, brownies are very fond of brooms. Leave a tiny broom in a corner of your home if you want their help, or leave one in the woods for a forest brownie. Looking to the Nine of Pentacles. As with the other suits, the final single-digit number, which is the number of months of pregnancy, shows us an image of completion, of the journey before the moment, the more concrete established situation of the 10. Here we return to the image we saw in the 7, the pentacles growing on the bush, the magic sign that unites heaven and earth has taken root, and now clusters of grapes also grown on the bushes, an image of lush abundance. The flower design on her dress resemble the woman Venus symbol on the Empress's shield, hinting that the goddess of the earth has come to life to bless the transformed world. Notice the trained falcon on her wrist. The hood puts him under her control, but he will fly very high when she releases him, only to return to her control. He symbolizes the trained and disciplined mind. Discipline, even more than work, holds the key to this card's transformation creative energy. Divinatory meanings: success through discipline and training, satisfaction and achievement. Okay, so quite different interpretations of this card in these two guidebooks. The Forest of Enchantment speaks mainly to the home life, feeling happy in solitude and in your home, domestic prosperity, taking care of yourself, and speaks to loneliness being the sacrifice you might need to make in order to have your freedom, and etc. Whereas the little white book in the Rider-Waite-Smith talks more about discipline and training and prosperity through the discipline, I assume. And also makes a parallel to the goddess energy of the Empress, and a completion of a journey. So definitely a different take here in the Forest of Enchantment, and I kind of like this homely aspect of this card. It makes it more approachable to me, makes it more earthly, I suppose, is the word I'm looking for. You know, I identify quite a lot with this brownie here. I do have a very active home life. I spend a lot of time alone, and I don't know, I just feel drawn to this whole situation, I suppose. But yeah, super interesting as well with the differences between these cards. How the same, I mean, it's similar in the depiction, definitely, but whereas this 9 of Pentacles lady has this hooded hawk that she is controlling and having control over. This brownie lady here has a friend in this creature that she has in her home. So it's again kind of a juxtaposition there in how they approach this same energy. So yeah, very interesting. All right, let's move on to the tens, shall we? The tens take the culminating energies of the nines and turn them up one more notch. For better or worse, empowerment becomes burnout and fears become a terrible reality. Conversely, wishing leads to bliss and contentment is enhanced by community. The Ten of Spells says the magic is squandered. The Ten of Visions says the dream is fulfilled. The Ten of Challenges says the quest has failed. And the Ten of Boons says welcome home. Okay, so Ten of Spells is quite different to the depiction of the Ten of Wands. So here we have a person, a man, struggling with this heavy load of wands that he is holding, and he's carrying it towards this village, it seems like. And it's a classic depiction. We see this in many different iterations in lots of different Rider-Waite-Smith decks, but often somebody struggling with a heavy load. And if we look here to the Forest of Enchantment, we see a very different depiction indeed. We see a line of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ladies, which is quite intriguing actually, and I'm eager to get into the write-up here. So, each of the ladies seem to be holding, she's barefoot and she's holding her shoes. She's taken off her crown. They all seem to be, she's also holding her shoes here. So, yeah, let's read. Ten of Spells. In the bleak pre-dawn light, 7 sister princesses make their way home after a night of dancing in the forest. While only one night has passed in the mortal world, it felt like many nights in the fairy realm where they were ensorcelled? I've never heard that word before. Ensorcelled. Alright. They danced until they could dance no more, yet still they danced on, caught in the merciless spell, until the night was spent. Now the sisters are utterly depleted, almost in shock. All they care about now is finding their own beds, except for the youngest. She tries to turn back, reaching out in longing, but her sister holds her fast and forces her forward. Everyone's body language speaks of profound exhaustion and regret. The enchantment is broken. This card signifies that your energies have been stretched far beyond their limits. The thing that gave you the most pleasure has become a burden. Your fire has burned out. Find your way back to safety and reevaluate your intentions before venturing out again. Meaning at a glance: exhaustion, burnout, disenchantment, regret in hindsight, burdens too big to bear alone. A closer look: the sisters' loosened hair symbolizes wantonness and reckless abandon. Okay, so 10 of Wands then. In this card, we see both the strength and the limitations of the Wands' approach to great change. The attempts to find community have gone, as have the resistance of 7 and 9. What we see is someone bowed down by burdens as he attempts to carry the maximum number of sticks. There is something honorable here, even heroic, as he does what he needs to be done. His way of carrying the sticks appears awkward. He would do better to tie them in a bundle and hoist them on his shoulder, but then he might crush the young leaves. In the story of the great upheaval, he represents the person who may not understand what has happened, or the spiritual consciousness that emerges, but simply dedicates himself to whatever needs to be done so that others may flourish. At the same time, service to others can result in exploitation or loneliness. Divinatory meanings, burdens, dedication, hard work, possibly sacrifice of self for others' well-being. Okay. So, quite a different approach here again. The Ten of Spells seem to be speaking to getting carried away, getting enchanted by something, and then in hindsight, when the exhaustion kicks in, realizing mistakes and regretting things, overburdening yourself and bearing them, like being too much to be able to handle them on your own. Whereas the Ten of Wands seems to be speaking to dedication and hard work instead, and sacrificing yourself for the good of others, and doing something in an awkward way in order to preserve something, or doing something on your own. It's a very different interpretation when you look at it side by side. It's very interesting, actually. Let me just have a little think here. So we've got somebody burdened by a task here, whereas here we see somebody who has left a night of merriment and not necessarily a work task or doing something for the greater good. They've been swept up in a moment and become overburdened by it, exhausted by it, and now they regret it. It's just such a different take on this card. Very, very interesting indeed. All right. 10 of Visions and 10 of Cups. So here we see the classic depiction of the rainbow and the 10 cups, and this happy family, like greeting the day, surveying all the, all that is theirs, and the playing children, and it's just an all-round super idyllic card in a way. And in the Forest of Enchantment, we see here a unicorn family lying in a beautiful glade. It looks very magical indeed. If we look closer, you can see how beautiful all of the details are in this card. So, 10 of Visions. The melody of a gentle brook cascading into a pool draws you towards a moonlit glade where you come upon a breathtaking sight, a family of star-dappled unicorns. The parents and their little one rests peaceably upon the velvet green, canopied by apple and cherry blossoms. A group of unicorns is known collectively as a blessing. The blessing of unicorns is not about worldly success or material well-being, but rather about soul fulfillment and bliss. There is an element of immortality in this card. This is joy that is timeless, eternal. No matter what happens, it is a spiritual touchstone. This card offers a vision of familial happiness, which can, of course, be any combination of people, not just parents and child. What matters is a commitment to each other in unity and harmony. If that doesn't seem to apply to your question, think about what would bring you lasting bliss. The unicorns offer their magic to help you realize your most beautiful visions. Meaning at a glance, true bliss, gratitude for blessings, a close and happy family, soulful joy. A closer look. There aren't many unicorns in the Forest of Enchantment. Dappled unicorns like these are even rarer. They can only be seen when the moon is full. Alright. Jumping straight ahead into the 10 of Cups. In one of the deck's happiest images, we see fulfillment of the goal to create a new world. A man and a woman raise their arms in recognition of a rainbow filled with cups, while two children dance together in carefree joy. Beyond the family, we see a simple house set among trees. Their happiness does not come from possessions, in contrast to the 10 of Pentacles, where we see a wealthier family who appears strained and tense. The rainbow suggests a spiritual, almost mythic quality to this culmination of the way of the heart. In some cultures, the rainbow forms a bridge between heaven and earth. In the Bible, we find a story similar to what we have been considering in this book. A flood destroys the world, leaving Noah and his family and the animals to start over. At the end of the great flood, God sets a rainbow in the sky as a promise it will never happen again. Divinatory meanings: happiness, fulfillment, deep emotional bonds, family and community. Okay, so quite similar here in the write-up, where they both talk about bliss and a happiness that is not based on earthly possessions, rather more like a soul fulfillment, bliss from joy of family and love, and yeah, I feel like both of them are just talking mainly about true bliss, fulfillment, and deep emotional bonds that is created through family and community and connection to other human beings or other beings overall. You know, living things, the nature, animals, the things that matter most in life. Yeah, they're both very beautiful cards. And I feel like they're pretty similar in their approach. Except, of course, we have unicorns and more of like a magical feeling here. Something that seems to be very rare indeed. Whereas here, I feel like we have more of a mundane approach. Kind of, to find bliss and happiness around you in the things that you've got. A simple homestead, your children, or other connections in your life. Whereas I feel like this kind of makes it a little bit more unattainable, you know, invisible, moonlit, like unicorns only visible in moonlight and they're a rare sight, kind of feeling. So yeah. All right, moving along swiftly, we get to the 10 of challenges. Moving along swiftly, we get to the 10 of challenges. So we've got in one card, in the Rider-Waite-Smith card, we've got this person lying face down with 10 swords stuck into their back. And it's a very scary looking card. It's quite brutal. But we also have this streak of yellow here, symbolizing some kind of clearing of these dark skies, maybe a sunrise. Yeah. And then we have here in the Forest of Enchantment a weary knight, old knight leaning against a tree with a broken sword, taken his helmet off. He looks just overall very tired. So let's read. An aged knight sits weeping, his faithful steed at his side. He is racked by despair and defeat. Many long years he has quested in this forest, pursuing a mythical beast who became his life's obsession. Along the way he fought bravely with countless other knights, never shirking in service to causes of righteousness and nobility. But relentless time has claimed him at last. All the fight has left him, and the beast has not been seen for a very long time. The old knight's sword and helm are battered and rusted. His quest is over. Perhaps it was mad to begin with. When this knight appears to you, take it as a message that it is time to face reality, cut your losses, and decide where to go from here. In a way, it can be a relief. This is as bad as it gets. You don't need to fight anymore or pursue an impossible dream. You get to lay down your sword and walk away. You can't win, but you are also done losing. Meaning at a glance, defeat, surrender, ruin, the death of a dream, give up and move on. A closer look. The knight's helm bears a feather from the white raven, but that ally has flown. All right. Jumping straight into the 10 of Swords. Maybe we can leave it there. At first glance, this appears the most dire of all the Swords cards, perhaps the entire deck. Even the Death card appears more hopeful. And even though dead, he seems to look the other way, still unable to face the truth. So one way we might view this card is to say that if we never find a way to accept the end of the old world, if we keep to denial, it will destroy us. And yet the card contains something deeper. For one thing, the Black Knight of the Nine is lifting as a golden dawn appears beyond the calm waters. The man's face turns away from us, but towards that light. And notice the fingers. They form the priestly blessing of the Hierophant. So maybe the picture, with its extreme violence at the end of the suit, shows an acceptance, even if forced upon us, that will finally release the past and allow the birth of a future. Divinatory meanings: mental distress, often exaggerated. Resistance to change worsens a situation. Alright, so, I mean, the differences here are quite, quite clear. This person has been stabbed. This person just old, given up, in a sense. And I suppose both of them speaks to the defeat and surrender and ruin, but it also kind of feels like this one speaks more to hope. And I thought the priestly blessing of the Hierophant was a very, very interesting touch. If you look at that hand there, I nearly pointed it out earlier, but I wasn't sure. So I'm glad it was mentioned in the guidebook. And it's also kind of funny how she remarks on the golden dawn that appears beyond the calm waters. So it's kind of like the worst has happened, or like it's also talking about how if you are stubborn and you refuse to change or look at a situation as it truly is, this might be your fate. But also that after a great upheaval comes a new dawn and a new future, and you can start again. This one seems quite dark, but it's also a moment of sorrow that is needed in order to start anew, to begin a new chapter. You might have grown too old to be a knight anymore, but, retirement is behind the corner. You just need to take off your armor and start a more relaxed and content life in peace. Yeah. All right. Let's move on to the last card in this episode, and that is the 10 of Boons and the 10 of Pentacles. So, two very different depictions here. We have several people. This one seems a bit more like a family. I don't know, and this seems more like a community. And this one is very welcoming. They're like waving you to come into their lovely hut where there's music and dancing and drinking and eating, and they just seem to be having an all-round good time. Whereas this one is a bit cluttered and a bit difficult to see what's actually happening. We have two dogs, we have a lady and an old man sitting here, and a child right down here. So yeah, let's just read. 10 of Boons. The forest seems endless. You've been walking all day and into the evening. Hungry, tired, discouraged. You push yourself just a bit further, hoping to find some shelter from the night air. And then you hear music. Yes, and laughter, the sweetest sound a lonely wanderer ever heard. Following it, you come to a gathering hall filled with light and warmth and friendly faces. You are welcomed as kin by forest folk, for whom hospitality is second nature. Food and drink are put before you, and you are invited to tell your tale. Your heart fills with grateful relief. You've found more than a night's shelter. You've found your tribe. Community is a basic human need, one that we've sadly gotten away from in these modern times. This card says that your tribe, your clan, your kin awaits your arrival, or perhaps you are the welcoming one. And the gathering hall is right where you are. As the last of the boons cards, the 10 reminds you that the greatest boon of all is like-minded fellows who stand by you in good times and bad. Meaning at a glance, a warm welcome, community, hospitality, kindred and extended family. A closer look, that huge Irish wolfhound is not supposed to be under the table. Be ready to catch hold of the dishes if he decides to stand up. That's the hound. Oh, cutie pie. Alright. The 10 of Pentacles. Here we see the conclusion of the effort to create a stable and wealthy society. We see a family in either an ordered town or their own manor courtyard. Well-dressed, prosperous, they appear in sharp contrast to the simple family and setting of the 10 of Cups. But where that family celebrated joyously, these people seem tense. The man looking away from the woman, the child clinging to his mother's dress and holding on to the dog. They may have developed the practical side of Pentacles but forgotten the magical, and yet the magic is all around them. The 10 Pentacles form a famous Kabbalistic diagram known as the Tree of Life. Other cards hint at it, but this is the only place it appears in full. But while in virtually every other card the people and the symbols interact, here they just overlay the picture. Most significantly, a mysterious old man, symbol of the spiritual world, sits just outside the archway. Only the dogs notice him. Divinatory meanings: wealth, stability, security, possible lack of emotion. So a very, very differing approach to these two cards. In the Forest of Enchantment, we have warmth, community, welcoming, finding your people, hospitality, and, a welcoming home of sorts. A very warm and loving card, kind of more in the air of the 10 of Cups in the Rider-Waite-Smith. Finding that love and happiness, the bliss of community. Whereas in the 10 of Pentacles, it's taken more of a coldness to it, kind of like overdoing the appreciation of the earthly goods, kind of like taking the pentacles and creating riches by material means, but forgetting the closeness that a family can have, like focusing too much on the riches instead of the richness that connection can give. Very, very interesting how they completely diverge from each other like that. I personally, I prefer the warmth and the loveliness of this card. in the Forest of Enchantment. But of course, it's kind of similar to the Ten of Cups. Although I suppose you can also see it as two different kinds of riches. You know, the richness of emotion and family bonds, and then the richness of community and helpful friends. That might be the difference between them in the Forest of Enchantment. But then again, I also kind of appreciate the perspective that the Ten of Pentacles gives, kind of almost serving like a warning of not letting the material side of things drive a wedge between yourself and the connection that really matters within your family. And also I kind of feel like it can also serve as a warning of not forgetting your elders, kind of like this young family being so preoccupied with their own squabbles here that nobody is paying attention to this wise old man that's sitting here, maybe probably full of wisdom and ready to share, and maybe also missing the connection to his family. Something that maybe he was hoping to get in his older age. So yeah, there's a ton of things that you can unpack here. And I really feel that comparing these two, they really just enrich each other. Like the things that are missing from this card that are part of this card, it like when you put them together, you get such a wealth of interpretation possibilities. Kind of like what's missing from these two cards when you put them together gives you such interesting ways of interpretation. Yeah, I could probably sit here and talk about this all day, but this series is completely unplanned. This is more like me bringing you alongside my study sessions. Like I'm reading this for the first time, I'm reading this for the first time, and I'm comparing these two cards for the first time together with you guys here. So what you get from me when I'm sitting here just talking out loud is just my first thoughts and the impressions of these texts and these cards. And I'm sure it would be a lot nicer for you guys if I would prepare and like make points and sit here and kind of like make it into a lesson. But I feel like for me, I'm just bringing you alongside of my study session and thinking out loud, really. And I'm pretty sure that there is a ton of things more that we could have explored throughout this deck, and a lot of different interpretations and details that we could expand upon. I feel like there's a wealth of information here that I could dig into, but I fear I'm losing my voice now and I need to end this session. But anyway, I would love to hear your thoughts. Did anything come to mind as I was talking here, reading to you or discussing the cards? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below, and we can have a little discussion. So thank you so much for joining me in today's session. This was episode number 10, and I'm hoping to be able to record episode 11, starting with the page and the knights very soon. So thanks again for joining me. I hope that you are all well and that you will take care of yourselves. So bye bye.